I say a lot, oh, the most important thing that we can have is close interpersonal relationships. That is very true from research and statistics. You can look into it. Huge studies show that our longevity, our quality of life, all based on close interpersonal relationships. But I'm going to go ahead and make an example that I think really drives the point home, and from a financial perspective. When I was growing up, unfortunately didn't grow up in the best way, so 2 days after I graduated high school, I left. And that was difficult. Very difficult. When I did that, I ended up sleeping on a couch. I had to figure things out real fast because I didn't know what I was doing. An aunt convinced me to go get a degree, and thank goodness she did. I worked 2 part-time jobs and interned and did school all at the same time. It was hard, it was a lot, but I got through it. Tried to restart my life with a person, and that didn't work out. Lost almost everything. Tried to restart my life again. Eventually met another person. Started getting rid of everything I owned to move in together. They changed their mind. Had to restart my life again. Got into crazy not good situation. Had to restart my life again. Ended up in like starvation. Ended up in another bad relationship where probably the most abusive one I've ever had. And it was awful. It was so bad. And I had to start all over again. Then I met another person. We joined up together. And this time it was for almost 11 years. But it still ended with me having lost everything. I mean, more than once during just that relationship, my possessions that I owned could fit in the backseat of a car. Like, I had lost everything. So multiple times in my life, I have had to restart over and over and over and over. Why? Why has it been so difficult? Well, A, I'm really bad at picking relationships. Let's just be real here. Part of it is definitely my fault. But it wasn't because I was bad with money. It was because I didn't have people. I, unfortunately, grew up in a cult. And when you grow up that way, if you don't adhere to the belief systems of the other people, you get no love. And I have been disowned and disinherited by almost everyone I've ever known. And almost all of my family and people I'm related to, we don't have contact. Like, they don't even say hello. Nothing. No emails, no once a year Merry Christmas, like nothing. So there's that. I unfortunately grew up in a very abusive way, and so I was desperate in my young adulthood to find someone who could love me, because I had been raised to believe I was unlovable, and I was desperate to prove that wrong. That didn't really work out. So I was definitely messed up, picked bad relationships, but also the people who came into my life were much more interested in using me and taking advantage of me and me being a tool or me being a resource than any other thing. And I didn't see people that way. I saw people as a hoped for relationship. I was hoping for love and acceptance and caring, but they saw me very much as a resource. Unfortunately, I was something of a doormat and became a resource for them. But in reality, the reason I have struggled so much in life is because I didn't have people. I didn't have relationships to financially support me being able to get anywhere. And so I had to restart from a lack of parents to help me with doing stuff like paying for college. My parents were extremely poor. There's no way they could have done that. I didn't have any way for a relationship to be long-term and it become that a spouse could work while I started a business, or that I could work while, they started a business and I also could benefit from it. There was no sense of having someone there to have my back. And this is very true for a lot of people. Marriage has become this disparaged thing, and I fully understand why. And at the same time, there is tremendous financial gain if you can find someone that you can be compatible with early on, because you can take care of each other. Oh, someone's financially not going to be able to provide because they're injured or they need to take some sort of maternity or paternity leave or something. No big deal. The other person can pick up the slack temporarily. Oh, someone wants to, become an entrepreneur or go back to school. The other person can pick up the slack financially. There is a huge margin of struggle for LGBT plus people, partially because marriage was so unattainable to them for such a long time. If a person needs to start a self-employment, how are they going to get health insurance when they don't have a spouse to provide it for them? There's huge gaps in financial cost that just come from not having people. I have had to have surgery before, and thank goodness I had someone close enough to me who would drive me to the hospital to have my surgery and then back from the hospital after my surgery. How would I have gotten home on public transportation with a bunch of stitches, drugged up from having been in anesthesia, on painkillers, completely how would that be functional? Thank goodness someone was in my life at that time to drive me home from a hospital after surgery. There are some people who don't have that, who just have to wing it. Get an Uber, I don't know, take the bus. You don't really have options, so you just do what you gotta do. And when you are by yourself in the world, there's less fear of emotional rejection from other human beings. But coming with it is a massive financial hurdle. You're gonna have to restart over and over again because stuff in life happens. Something's going to happen at some point. That's just how life is. The statistics on getting out of your previous class are pretty terrible. It takes decades. And that's if nothing goes wrong. But it's life. Something's gonna come up. And when that happens, when you get in a car wreck, or when something catches on fire, when something happens in life that's unpredictable, not controllable, that's just how life is, and you don't have anyone, you're gonna have to restart. You will lose everything trying to cover for the expense of what just happened, and you'll have to restart. And that happened to me way too many times because I just didn't have social skills from growing up in a lot of isolation and stuff, and I didn't have people who cared about me almost at all. And the only times that I can see where I got through, and even when I restarted my life, the only reason I could was those moments where someone did care, where someone cared enough. I remember one time I just could not pay rent, and so I asked my parents to help me with rent for the month, and I would pay it back when I got paid. But then when I paid them back, I didn't have rent money for the next month. And so we did this little dance of they helped me with rent, I'd pay them back, help me with rent, pay them back. And I finally got to the point where I said, it's never going to stop unless 1 month you help me pay rent and I don't have to pay you back. And I will try to pay you back later at some other point when I can. And they said, okay. It would have been a never-ending cycle. And eventually someday I did pay them back. So thank goodness for, things being temporary. If I wouldn't have had that, my birth mother, I can't even ask. Her and her husband I have zero contact with. So it's just my father, who has almost disowned me a couple of times. I've been a disappointment my entire life to him. But his wife that he remarried, who I call my mom, who's actually my stepmom, but I just call her mom, she would never let him do that. He's a very sweet, loving person who loves everybody. Wonderful person. And she is the reason that even worked out, because they were poor. It's not like they could really afford that. And yet she worked a whole bunch of extra hours and made it happen. When you have someone who would have your back, even in a small way like that, it was like, what, $400? It wasn't like it was this astronomical amount. I was short by a few $100s and I couldn't pay it. And they made it happen. When I very first went to start my life, there was this wonderful little group of elderly women that I had been volunteering with. They were all poor, and yet they all pitched in together and put money together in a basket and gave that money to me to start my life with. When I was 18, I was broke. I was struggling. I was working, but I was working for minimum wage at a daycare. Like, I didn't have anything. And they all pitched in together and gave me, it was less than $2,000, I think, but it was still huge. And I would not have gotten into school. I would not have been able to get off that couch if it wasn't for the money that those women put together. Having other people, having human support is the most financially sound thing. Having community wealth, a wealth of community around you, of people around you who you can help in hard times and they help you in hard times. I always try to give back. I always try to be the friend who they can come to if they're moving. Yeah, I'll help you move boxes. They don't have to feel trepidatious. They don't have to hesitate. They know they need help. I will show up, because I might not be able to give them all the money in the world at different points in my life. That's absolutely been true, but I can be a support system. I have been an emotional support blankie for almost every friend I've ever had. They need to emotionally gurgitate, I'll listen. There's a trade-off, a symbiotic relationship that you develop with people, and that symbiosis is so important. If you are a person who is missing out because you didn't have the opportunity to get married, you didn't have the option to get married because you were part of the LGBT plus community, you maybe got married, but it was a domestic violence situation and you had to get out of the home, lost everything, please go make new relationship, because relationships, they're precious. If you lose everything, but you have a friend who'll let you come stay at their house, you're not homeless. You are technically, you are according to the state, but you're not actually sleeping on a street. Have a wealth of community. It's invaluable.